Welcome to WIGO, right here from Mzansi, live and direct at our podcast. And I've got my man over here, Mr. Manduri.
Thank you, Mr.
And today we are joined by my home man, my main man over here, Mr. Joel Reuters, producer extraordinaire, military man, in a Cape Town swag. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Please like, subscribe, share. You know how we do over here. And here we are representing the conversation and the lead up to the South African elections. Guys, it's been a show. Have you seen what's been going on out there? And I'm actually sitting here right now with the guys and asking myself, vote for who? So guys,
I know I'm gonna vote for. I'm just not gonna say it.
You're just not gonna say.
Yeah.
Well, guys, stick around because we're gonna unpack this whole thing. There's a few things that we're gonna be talking about today. Things like SONA. We absolutely need to discuss some of the views about what happened over there, and we're gonna speak about the elections and then the lead up to that, and also, I know this is gonna be a touchy subject. The effectivity of world protest to certain occurrences in the world today. Is the International Criminal Court actually viable when some people get to do things and others don't? So these are the things we're going to kind of touch on to it. But without further ado, let's take it on. So put that D.
Well, let me start by saying that, which is great actually.
Yeah.
I always follow SONA. I did not follow it this
Yeah,
year.
right.
I was too busy, but I was.
Yes.
So that for me, all I heard through the grapevine was that it was the same old shit. Can I say shit? I
Yes,
think I
it's
can.
podcast.
If we're talking about politics,
Yes,
well,
shit.
the day, and I don't think just in South Africa, just locally, but I think just world politics.
Yeah.
It's a shit show.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
levels of corruption, all of those things.
Yeah.
So I am here today, and I'm so happy that I'm in the company of the esteemed Mr. Reuters here. Because I know he always has a lot to say about Sona.
That's why we have the show, right?
And that's why he's here today. So I want to know from you. All I know is I'm going to tell you straight. I didn't watch no Sona. I was too busy. Also, in a certain way, didn't want to watch it because yes, it is always the same. And you can always. I've also gotten bored over the years of Sona.
Yeah.
I have to be very honest with you. Where I would go in the middle, this is kind of, I've heard this before, and then I just leave, and then I wait for the next day, go to YouTube. Oh, here's a nice little 10-minute clip of whatever was
Summarize.
said. Yeah.
And wait, it's still the same thing.
It is still the same thing. But what does that mean in the end? That it is still the same thing? What is the responsibility of government? Do you know what I mean?
You know, before Mr. Latest educates us, because we know he's a lot more an upper echelon when it comes to these matters.
That's my man.
That's why we got you here, right? We need someone who can validate some of our shows right now. So I think, don't you think that in that stance yourself that we've become too complicit in not holding some people accountable? Maybe our accountability hasn't been put to question as well because it's just continuing and having to reread the same script but just with different grammatical changes still doesn't take away the inaction.
It still doesn't take away the inaction. And at the moment, I have to tell you, I'm in a catch-22 situation. I look at where the ANC is at. We look at load shedding. We look at just many things.
Everything.
Unemployment, abject poverty, and I go like, who do I vote for? And then I have the Palestinian crisis.
We'll get there in a minute. That's a whole era on its own.
But what I want to say is, like, we're talking about politics. We're talking about the elections. Who on earth am I going to vote for?
Bruh.
Who am I going to vote for? I don't know who to trust. I'm sorry to say it.
And
I live in a DA-run province. But I still don't know who to trust. And I'm not saying that I haven't met some DA politicians. I have to be honest that I feel have a very honest bone. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. Especially in my sector, in the arts sector. I've met some very, very good people that really are for their communities. And I'm talking about rural councillors that bring you in, that want to develop, But at the same time, you get people saying that it's an extension of like the Zionist ideas. You get what I'm saying? But you're right.
So let me swing it to you, Mr. Reuters. Welcome to the show. What's going on, my brother? So as it says, take it from the top. Sona, do you feel the same way he does?
Look, so I
Did
actually,
you watch the whole Sona?
Yes, this is what I want to answer. So I mirror you in the sense that I couldn't get to watch the Sona yesterday. I was myself extremely busy. As Becky mentioned earlier,
You watched the whole
we
thing.
are
Not the whole thing.
you know, busy with productions, busy trying to get work in, and as a result, you know, sometimes you miss things. And the Sona was one of them that I unfortunately had to. I didn't even give any consideration to watching.
Yeah.
I did, however, hope that there would be one or two things that I would read up or hear about in the news from the Sona that would give me some sort of pleasant surprise. But once again, it's the same old disappointment. And it's not just from us in this room. Between this morning and getting onto the show now, there have been different levels of chatter in different groups that I'm privy to about what the Sona means, what the president was saying, or
The response
in
is-
fact what the president was not saying.
Okay.
So I think that for the most part, everyone echoes our sentiment is that they basically gave him last year's script and put new dates to it.
You know, I find it interesting because I was watching, you know, these like recap shows where they interview some of the opposition
Yeah.
and what they thought of it. Hey, this woman, I can't remember her name, but the way she laid in on that Cyril, yo, she's like, what does he think we are? Playing with our intelligence. We know, how dare he have the gall for him to stand there and talk about state capture when he was deputy president and sitting there allowing those ministers to run the muck. I'm like, what she said. What she said. And I think we've really gotten to a mass psychological restlessness because the hall passes have run out. And now, and this is going to lead us into the next question about who do we vote for has run out because now if the hall passes have run out and we've had enough, then who's going to step up to the plate? Because I just found out the other day that the Western Cape was just sold to America. Rate
I
us,
was
please.
I'm busy with my research on that because I was quite upset.
Where was
I was like, look, you know, you can't also just like believe everything you see
Yeah.
online. So I told myself, you got to like enter into your own research and find out what exactly the situation is. But I mean, it is a scary thing, thinking that our province has been sold to the US of A, nonetheless.
Someone pinch me and wake me up.
You know?
Yeah, look,
I
I
mean,
can't
what's up
speak on
with
that. You know, I can't speak to whether that is a true or not statement, but what I do know is that organs of the state cannot be sold.
Yeah.
You know, and no one can actually sell any.
But we've had this before with the whole
Yeah, no.
Gupta saga.
There was an attempt there. You must remember that what intrinsically happens with the whole state capture thing is that people will not try to buy over state-owned entities.
Yeah.
In the lot because you can't.
Yes.
They are state-owned entities. But what they were trying to do was infiltrate those
Yeah.
state-owned entities
Put
and
your people there.
repurpose them.
Oh.
So repurposing the state-owned entities for personal gain. I think that was more the thing that was happening. So how do we commit a crime without it looking as if we're committing a crime type of a thing?
Yeah.
And look, all we're saying is this is an opinion-based thing. People might have a different view on what state capture is. But if we drill down into it, that's exactly what or for me, that is what the state capture thing was about. So when we're making a statement about the Western Province was being sold to the US, think of it in those lines.
Okay.
How do we let US corporations and multinationals into the province to benefit from it, knowing that they're going to meet a friendly government, provincial government,
Yes.
and do it at the cost of the people? Is that a question we can ask? Is it a fair enough question? I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah.
But also, in
So they
terms of-
played. So the way you explain that just feels as if we've been used as fodder. Because I mean, to
But
sell
look at-
to tell the gull to even have that publicized that, oh yeah, no, we were just up for sale. Even though you can't actually sell organs of the state, you still went and spoke about it.
Yeah, I think even fodder is better.
But
Fodder gets used once and it's depleted. We are production names.
But Joe, how do we solve this? I mean, who in the end will people vote for? If also there's been, in terms of the registration drive, voter registration drive, I don't think many people went out to get registered, you know.
Funny enough, I did.
How are we going to change things if people are not registering to vote?
Yeah.
And yes, it's an old cliche, but especially our youth, they are the unemployed, the ones, you know, that
and jaded as. Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, they're jaded, eh?
But I think it would
what
be
do they have
interesting.
to fight for? That's the other
It would be
question,
interesting to hear from the IEC how exactly we fared as a country when it came to new registrations, both now in this past weekend and in the November registrations, just so that we can get a clear indication of what our voters' roll looks like, new voters that were added, how many of them were youth, what those demographics actually look like, rural versus urban, and also across the color line. You don't want to hone in on matters of race really, but it would be interesting to see what that is. But from if you hear what the general feeling is out there, is that for the most part the big parties are losing confidence. They're losing people, they're losing voters.
Absolutely.
And the more people break away and do their own thing, they're losing more and more voters.
Absolutely.
They need to do whatever is in their best interest now. So which means that they are now willing to share power in certain instances. So we're moving away more from one party
to coalition style.
So we're going to be more and more facing coalition governments, both at the municipal and provincial level, and then, dare I say, maybe even at the national level.
But do you think
that's gonna just be, too many cooks?
It will. I thank you.
I know there's many countries with coalition governments.
And now we've got the tribalism nonsense within all the parties. And then how is that?
I'm from a party, and then we have to resolve, and in the end, it's that whole conflict that arises. And if they don't, how do you compromise?
That's such a tricky question, because a country that is marred in corruption and its middle name is rot.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Having to have a coalition situation, it's almost like the broth is already spoiled.
And the international community obviously will be trying to spoil our image further with regards to the ICJ case. Just look at, I mean, you've seen what's been happening, on that front. And then there was this a recent BBC docu on the crime in South Africa. Yes, some of it very true, but we know what you're trying to do. You don't want to be taken on. And if one looks at big politics, it's like almost an ANC government taking on. Do you get what I'm saying?
Right.
The Israeli government, the US government. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm 100% South African in that regard. And I'm so proud that we did that. With all the corruption that we face, with all our uncertainty when it comes to the elections that's coming up, I am at this moment still and will continue to remain a proud South African. Sometimes it's
regardless,
difficult. I mean, we hardly didn't end up doing this podcast because of load shedding. And all of the above.
You were saying.
No, I think just going back to the issue of looking at who are the players out there. I'm not sure if you're aware that there are over 300 parties registered with the IEC right now. I thought there was 3.
I did think, Joel, that you were part of that 300. Because I was like, I'm going to vote for Joel. But he's not. It seems he didn't.
He didn't register.
I don't think that it's right time to delve into the foray of politics at all. I'm not
yet, you mean?
I'm not a politician. I'm not.
Joel for Minister of Arts.
Yes. So I'll be Minister of Entertainment.
But I think that people themselves, look, 2024 is an election year, but this year is going to be the new 1994 for a myriad of reasons. Let's be blunt. The thing is that in 1994 people voted with their hearts. 2024, a lot of people are now going to vote with their heads, and people are starting to ask not just intelligent but intelligible questions, and looking for leadership that mirrors their values. So when we're look at all these organizations, I mentioned there's 350 of them strewn across the country. Now there might be on the Western Cape ballot only 60, whereas in the Gauteng ballot there's 85, on the Northern Cape ballot there's 40, whatever. I don't know what the numbers look like. But what I can tell you is that when people start asking these intelligent questions, they are actually looking for organizations now that are bottom up.
I agree with you.
That have the people's views in mind and take the people's views forward, versus voting for organizations that are top down, where we at the top decide and you all must live with it, which has been the political landscape for over 30 years.
And you know what, it does make sense. I would rather trust a councillor that I know is there for the people, who is from a minority party. But if I live in a certain area, and you're right, Jola, that is how some people are thinking. You know, they're forgetting about
Get it from something closer.
the EFF. Some people are really zoning in on those smaller
So
parties.
how do we scale that though? How do we scale that? Because I'm sorry, the visage of the landscape or of politics in South Africa is so dystopian, distorted and destroyed, that those kind of mechanisms seem plausible, but they can't be exceptional cases only. How do we scale it so that we can actually almost antidote the thing from inside and then grow the rot out? Because you're right, we can't. And I have to use my hands on this one.
Get the smell.
I think the misnomer is that exactly that. When we're looking at these types of changes as exceptions, and our interest as people is we South African people, and I dare to say this at the expense of people clapping me in the street, but we've got this thing that we want instant gratification. That includes our political landscape as well. We want politics to be this thing that we're going to vote you in today and tomorrow we want to see change. Instead of looking at how do we affect incremental change. So all these things that are happening right now are part of that change, that machine that's happening. An avalanche starts with one snowflake and it builds. Can we allow our political avalanche just to run its course? Let's not try to steer an avalanche in a different direction. People are asking these questions. People are going to look in little pockets, starting from the grassroots level, looking at councillors, going into municipality, provincial, and then at some space national. The degradation of political parties has taken place over a 30-year period. And now we're looking at how people are going to reverse 30 years worth of damage. We can't do it in one election. We need to look at what's happening now, 2024. What is the local government elections going to look like in 2026? Let's look at the 2029 elections and what that political landscape is going to look like. Now we're looking at but we were busy playing the long game. In 2029, it's going to be a completely different political landscape, not because they wanted to, but because they've got no choice. Coalitions are going to happen. More intelligent politicians are going to need to come in. And some people have reached their shelf life. They're going to make their exit, hopefully making way for younger people to come in, because it's now the time that younger people take an active stance in politics the same way that they did
when our parents actually were in schools and they were fucking they're throwing stones at Caspers to change the situation.
But we probably should be...
next, what is, sorry to interrupt you, that just 2004 to 2024 to 2029, I feel is going to be the next few years to be remembered.
It will be.
Remember 94 until 99?
Yeah.
That was the golden years. I don't know what's coming, boys.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just confined to the South African borders and space. I think that across the world and across the globe, there is a new consciousness arising, and what what does humble me about it is that it's been in part it's stripped away from my faith is this, your religion is that. It's about who's the corrupt ones here, who corrupts our society, especially using their political power, wielding that, and the man on the street, forever getting the shortest end of the stick. That for me, I simply love what's happening. It's a different consciousness developing. Yeah. And it's about stop exploiting people. Stop it. Stop stealing land. Just stop your stealing. Stop killing people.
Yeah, these conversations, they need to be exponentially made more prioritized within circles in education, because right now all of the mediocrity, I think, from what you see from universities whatnot, is not helping the generation be prepared for what is inevitably happening. No. They are not equipped. We as our generation
people are still caught up in this.
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, please let us know your thoughts on the comment section. Okay, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, because this is what's going on. But as I was saying again, how are they ever going to steer this? As you said, the inevitable. You said there's an avalanche. Oh, this thing is going to take out. You know what I mean? If we're going to let it just happen on its own.
I want to hear from Joel then. So how do you think we approach this lack of, I guess, enthusiasm from the youth to get registered and to then make their voices heard?
Protest.
No, I mean, how do we resolve this? How do we bring it? Is it now down to you, myself, Bex, that we are the ones that, speak to certain youth and say, bruh, you have to vote. You've got to make a decision. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? How do we resolve this? How do we get the youth to vote? I know that in party politics, they are quite trying to be extremely proactive in the youth because they obviously require those votes. But Tyd se ook kwaai brein my bro, so ek wil weet ons daar solution vir ons. Dis kom ons wil hê met politics gaan dat hy hom nou nie producer speel met bro.
Hy wil producer speel. I'm playing producer.
Look, once again, as I say, I speak under correction. I speak, this is my opinion. I'm not saying that in any way am I right. However, we just crossed that threshold now in terms of saying we're a producer with this, whatever not. Now let me make an example.
And also, not forgetting what you said, that it doesn't happen overnight.
Quite. So let's delve into an example that maybe we can make sense of around the table here. You've been on plenty of sets.
Yes.
And be it for TV, for film, even commercials.
Yeah.
And so have you. Now, let's look at what happens on different sets. Does every set feel the same?
No.
Right? Let's look at what happens on those sets where things don't feel good, where people are not feeling great about being there, where the shoot just feels like it's dragging, it's taking long.
It's draining,
Now, that feeling, that's what the political feeling is, because everything is happening negatively.
Yes. Oh, I just got tired of imagining it. I was like,
however, imagine quickly on those sets, if you had taken out the cause for that, because often it comes from the top down. If the direction was taken from somebody that you could relate to, somebody that's making the set fun, somebody that's making the shoot feel as if it reignites your passion in the film industry,
yes.
then you would act better, you would be a bit more. So if in politics we want to encourage youth to vote, we can't come to them with the 1980s approach and say you must vote now, because they
throw bricks at a Casper.
The point that I'm trying to make is that at the moment right now we're making politics dull to the youth, and they don't grab that. We're living in a generation where TikToks and that we want the vibe. We want things to make sense to us as the youth, and I'm not talking about at my age, because I'm far older than the ones that need to be actually taking a stand. So if the leadership is not speaking their language, how do you expect them to be revved up and go to the voting stations?
And that is maybe go on.
So where we should be doing better is looking at those young leaders, young lions that right now want to be actively involved in politics, who will have their peers following them. Not to be silenced in political houses, not to be silenced by older politicians and say, hey, you're taking away my shine. Or to be put under the boot and say, you only spew what my words are. Because the youth can also hear when a youth leader is being disingenuous.
Yeah, and maybe that is the EFF's appeal. Just throwing that out there is, I guess, the youthful approach of the party leaders.
I really absorb what you're saying. I really thank you for coming to the show, just to give us a little bit more of an articulate deliverance on some of the things that we've been thinking. But we've got about 5 more minutes of the show, and I wanted to maybe just pivot a little bit in the conversation, and I only want 5 minutes of it because it's actually 75 years worth of content. I look, we all know it's been on all our feeds what's going on over there in the East, and I just maybe wanted to get your quick summary of what you think the implications of the ruling of the ICJ and how Israel has turned around and say they don't care about their whatever they've decided. What do you think the implications are to the actual integrity of the ICJ and the Geneva Convention and the treaties that all these countries have come to in terms of international law, and they get to not adhere to it? Go, please. Go 5 minutes. I don't want to go into the thing. I just wanted to hear about that
resistance. I think the resistance is certainly, and I'm talking about pro-Palestinian resistance, is definitely has grown like exponentially since the war started. Personally, yes, many deaths later. I'm just extremely happy that South Africa took the Zionist state of Israel to court, because someone had to speak up, and I still think that we were a very good choice to go and to do that. Personally, I feel somewhat despondent in terms of not the ruling. I think, I wanted to see fire. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. I think that at some point we need to just go, and that was my point earlier. How do we decide who decides when to stop the killing? Do you get what I'm saying? When do you decide to stop the killing? Why aren't you accountable? You even are taken to the International Court of Justice, but but Daddy is saying it's okay. Yeah. Go kill those people. It's okay, you know. And that is what I'm on about, is that it's this idea that the West has, that they have this power, and they have wielded that power over the rest of us for decades.
And now they're showing us.
But, as we said earlier, there's a resistance consciousness growing, and it is not just to be found in South Africa. And I think in the end, this for me is just the start of a bigger explosion, and it will probably, and it is already, dividing the world into
they're calling it the Great Divide.
A and B.
Yeah, the Great Divide.
That's where we're going.
The Great
and
Divide.
I'm fine with my side and
your side of history. Regis?
Yeah, I think right now, and as Abdu said, it's very critical for each person to take that introspection, self-reflect, and find out on which side, or actually decide on which side of history they want to be.
Yes.